So, hello viewers, and welcome back to Susty Talk. Yes, Edie's virtual interview series, which was set up maybe a year ago today. I'll need to do the fact checking on that. As a result of the lockdown that was issued in 2020, is still continuing. Such is the way of things at the moment. For those unaware, Susty Talk is Edie's ongoing series of video interviews that's been put together to keep our audience of sustainability and energy professionals talking, feeling connected and optimistic through this latest lockdown in the UK and beyond. I'm edie's content editor, Matt Mace, and joining me for a slightly different episode of Susty Talk, we have Lizzie Carr, the activist, author and adventurer and founder of the Planet Patrol NGO. Lizzie has written the foreword for edie's new single-use plastics report for businesses, which is live on the site right now. I encourage you to go check that out after this interview is finished. There'll be a link in the description for that. So firstly, Lizzie, well, thank you for joining me. How are you today?
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very well. The sun's shining, so that's always a bonus.
Brilliant to hear. Yeah, bit gloomy where I am, but it's getting to that time where the weather makes you feel in a better mood regardless. This is getting a little bit warmer. The winter months are starting to get put behind us. And we're recording this as part of edie's Circular Economy Week, which is a week of content dedicated to helping corporates and individuals eliminate unnecessary single-use plastics while embracing closed-loop models around the wider resource efficiency debate to really move away from a take, make, dispose linear economy to one that kind of closes the loop. Where does your personal connection from this topic stem from?
Yeah, so it is a very personal journey for me. So I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and as part of my recovery, I took up paddleboarding. I found that the more time I was spending on the water, the more plastic I was seeing, and all litter, but predominantly plastic, I should say. This was around 2015 to 2016, so before there was any real awareness of the problem. And up until then, I would say, like most people, I was living in this environmental bubble, this environmental sleepwalk. But being out on the water really magnified the problem for me. And when I was seeing birds' nests made up almost entirely of plastic wrappers and swans chewing on plastic bags, it really connected with me. And I started to look at my own habits and my own consumption. But I'd say the real turning point was reading the stat that 80% of marine debris starts inland on our canals and rivers before it flows out into our oceans, where around 95 to 99% sinks. And at that point is completely irretrievable. I felt that we needed to focus on the source of the problem more. We needed people to care and to take action, and we needed data really to understand it better. So I started exploring ways that I could do that. And
data is a real prominent theme of Planet Patrol, which is the NGO we mentioned that you set up. Should we touch a little bit on how Planet Patrol came to be?
Yeah, so again, that was really organic. So in 2016, when I paddleboarded the length of England, it was a 400-mile journey that took me about 22 days to complete. And it was a world first challenge, but for me, it was about making that connection between adventure and environment and finding ways to tell important environmental stories that would engage people. So on that journey, I photographed and recorded about 20,000 pieces of litter. And the name Planet Patrol, which we've since rebranded to, no, it was Plastic Patrol, sorry, that's been rebranded to Planet Patrol, was the hashtag that I used on social media to document everything. By the time I'd finished that journey, I'd received messages from people all over the world asking how they could support or get involved. So at that point, I turned the map that I'd made into an interactive crowdsourcing app, the Planet Patrol app, so people in these countries could contribute litter data. On the other side of it, I organised paddleboarding cleanups all around the UK, which were completely free, and the payment from people, or their nature tax, as I called it, was to record litter in the app and help build out this kind of global repository of data. So fast forward to now, sort of 5 years on, the app's been used in more than 85 countries around the world. We've had around 35,000 volunteers engage, and we've got reps that run activity-based cleanups in countries across Europe, America, and even as far as Brazil. So what started effectively as this one-woman crusade has evolved into this global movement of like-minded people that really want to make a difference, and Planet Patrol has given them the tools to do that.
That's that's amazing, and I think the connection between outdoor activities like paddleboarding, where there's a real sense of health and well-being associated with it, and the environmental impact that it has. I think something that's really resonated during lockdown, and I've been spending the last year running quite a bit, doing some trail runs in the summer, and even then in the middle of the woods you'll see bits of plastic, and I think lockdown has really connected people back to nature and made them more aware of nature's benefits and beauty, but also the impact that humanity has on that. And I've pulled out some of the impact that humanity is having in terms of litter from the Planet Patrol report that was published just a few weeks ago, I believe, outlining the extent of single-use litter in the UK. So according to the report, 43,187 pieces of litter were recorded on the app between 1st of January and 31st of December last year in the UK, and of those, 16,752 items were recorded by brands, and I'm sure we've all kind of driven past a road and seen a fast food takeaway bag on the floor, or a plastic bottle that's distinguishable to a brand. And I don't want to necessarily label them as the enemy, because some are doing a lot, some are doing bits to really try and minimize their impact. But do you think the emphasis is on brands to educate consumers about the impacts of littering, or do you think it's on brands to actually ensure that if their products do end up in a natural environment, which kind of seems unfortunately inevitable at the moment, that it can't damage the environment? Or is it perhaps a little bit of both?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So for context, with the app, users log litter by type, brand, volume and location. And because we're always on, it means that people can do it anytime, anywhere, and it gives us a really comprehensive picture of the problem rather than a snapshot. But to your point, I'd say that there's a lot of issues that need addressing. There isn't a single way of tackling this. Yes, education is part of the solution, but the issue doesn't lie solely with the end consumer, and that's why taking a data-led approach is such an integral part of how we do this and what we do. I think ultimately we need more innovative product design, and as you say, choice editing. If something isn't ethical or sustainable, then why is it on sale? That's the question that we need to be asking ourselves now. And importantly, we need to modernise and standardise recycling infrastructure across England to manage the types of waste and the volume of waste that we're producing in the UK, to extract value from materials that are already in circulation and not keep shipping it off to third world countries that don't have the systems in place to manage their own waste, let alone ours. I think as well, there were other findings in that report that really stood out for me, like the amount of PPE recorded. So this type of litter was added to the app in July 2020. So it was only active for about half a year, yet it made up around 1.5% of all litter recorded. So that's about more than one in every 100 pieces. And equally, the sharp rise in disposable coffee cups was quite staggering. So year on year, we saw a 130% increase in recording of these, which I think really shows the impact of COVID on our daily habits, particularly in areas like disposable cups, where we'd made so much progress in normalising reusables before the pandemic.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point actually, and I've covered a few bits of research about how society is a bit concerned about how safe reusable or bags for life are right now, because there's some misinterpretations about the virus being able to last longer on certain surfaces, and the academic community are doing really well to try and dispel these myths. But the fact that they're out there, we're in a fake news society essentially, where anything can get shared and people will believe what they want to believe. So it's a real tough order, and I think the interesting aspect will be what this next normal holds for corporate efforts on that. But I want to touch on your organisation a bit more. Your tagline on the website is join your global movement. Your mission is simple: clean up our planet. And you mentioned some of the cleanups that have happened. How has that been impacted? This global movement that you're trying to generate. How's that impacted by the pandemic and the lockdowns? Do you feel the movement has slowed down, or has it actually resonated more personally, but in a perhaps more digital way?
So I expected it to slow down, but interestingly, we actually saw an increase in app downloads, particularly in the first lockdown, like lockdown 1.0. We saw an increase in that first month by about 400%. We obviously had to completely rethink our approach, as the entire summer programme for Planet Patrol is built around community-based action through litter picking. But we did adapt online and encourage people to litter pick independently on walks and during time outside. And this was actually really effective. We also spent that time focusing on building out other programmes like our Community Guardians, where individuals manage communities, manage their local areas, doing litter picks and working closely with businesses and schools. And this received hundreds of applications. So there was definitely appetite to be more involved in environmental initiatives. And I think, like you've already said, lockdown really encouraged people to take a step back and connect with nature and just be more present. And the use of our app and the sentiment from our audience and the growth of our audience, I think, really reflects the shift in mindset.
No, yeah, that's a great point, and that shift in mindset, I think, is going to be crucial, because we've seen from the business community a forced shift in mindset, and I suppose that's probably societal as well in terms of how they've had to act. Many have pivoted manufacturing outputs to assist with kind of protective equipment. Many have shown real agility to switch to kind of new online models. And I mean, you mentioned lockdown 1.0. I think we're now in the third one. It's all a bit blurry this past year. But even as we exit out of this latest lockdown, how optimistic do you feel that corporate and societal efforts to combat this issue will still be prominent? Do you think there's a danger that it has fallen down the agenda and more people may focus on health and safety of themselves over perhaps the planet?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tricky one, isn't it? It'll be interesting to see how behaviours change as restrictions ease and normal life resumes. I'd say, like I said, we've seen a groundswell in interest of people supporting Planet Patrol. And based on our discussions with companies, it's clear that there's much more thought now around brand purpose and authenticity, which I would say is partly due to COVID. But the reality is there is still a lot more work to do. This year, we've recorded as much litter as last year, despite being in lockdown for a significant portion of it. We're seeing more people than ever out in nature tackling litter, yet the problem is still getting worse. And that goes back to the rate and scale of production of plastic but other single-use materials, which is only set to increase over the coming years. So yes, we can't deny that progress is being made, but there is still so much more to do at every level.
And the level I want to, I suppose, focus on and finish on is that corporate level. That's primarily Edie's audience, the sustainability professionals, and businesses get painted the enemy, sometimes rightly, sometimes perhaps a bit harshly. I know firsthand. I spent a lot of sustainability professionals who work for some major companies who have massive plastic and environmental footprints, and they're working some with very limited resources, both in terms of personnel and budget, to really kind of create a mind shift change within the business and essentially, turn that business into an activist like they feel they are. As an activist yourself, it'd be great to, for you to offer them advice what steps can they start taking to make their businesses perhaps think about this differently and perhaps add a bit of activism into that business purpose that we spoke about.
Yeah, again, I think this is going to be a really interesting year for businesses taking sort of more of an activist stance. I think by collaborating with NGOs like Planet Patrol and grassroots campaigners who will often have conflicting values, businesses have a really sort of unique opportunity to act as corporate activists and make change really that means something. I think it's about embracing uncomfortable conversations and recognizing that pressure and tension are in fact signs of progress. At this point, COVID has really shown that businesses can act quickly and radically, and this flexibility is going to be key to driving a green economy without having to wait for legislative changes to force the hand.
No, I really like that, embracing uncomfortable conversations. I think that's definitely the point where we're at as a society and businesses, that the easy wins have largely been done. The nice to-dos are now becoming must-dos, and yeah, those conversations are going to be crucial.
Absolutely.
Moving forward. Lizzie, thank you so much for your time today. I know how busy you are, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but thank you for being a great guest on your series. I know our audience will appreciate your insight, especially as someone who's kind of on the outside looking into the business sphere. It's good to have those different voices around these conversations, as uncomfortable as they might be. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And for those listening, we will still be continuing our Susty Talk series. We don't quite know what this next normal means in terms of whether we can start doing some face-to-face interviews again. I think everyone's pretty well adapted to this type of format now anyway, so it will be continuing for the foreseeable future. So do look out for future Susty Talk episodes. There's a few more coming this week as well. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay positive, and keep up the Susty Talk.